all kinds of things are still happening in the world and all of that. So I'll give you a little rundown on some of the things that I'm hearing about. And of course, in a little bit, we'll have our panelists come on and share their wisdom as well. But we did see in the world news, as it is the world edition, that Iran's Khamenei is vowing revenge after a deadly attack on Shiite pilgrims. So that is one of the things that we're seeing from over there in the Middle East. And Israel and Lebanon have approved maritime deals. So it looks like they're going to have some deals going on in that maritime space. Wish that definitely Chris was here, but Chris has got some other appointments, so he might not be able to make it. But hopefully tomorrow he'll be able to give us some insights on some of those kind of stories and all in that space. I know that we do have Sasha Starr here with us today, and apparently a TV host and ex-presidential candidate over there in Russia. Ksenia Sobchak has fled Russia after an apartment search in her country and all in that space. And Russia is threatening to target Western commercials satellites like Elon Musk's Starlink and all in that space. And we do know that that is a very vital part of what goes on with the internet. And that could definitely be an interesting blow to what goes on in that space of even cybersecurity and things along that lines. And one of the things I'm going to ask Nick about is that apparently there are a lot of folks that are still afraid of COVID, the people who are still isolating and masking. And I've even had some conversations with some friends of mine who have said that they have no intention of going out and about, even though I've been going out and about to everything from concerts to festivals to a number of other things. And for the most part, have seen people trying to follow some sense of protocol, even though now that I think about it, some of them are not wearing masks. And I'm just assuming that they're vaccinated and they may not be vaccinated. But there is a group of folks that are trying to be cautious. I have always said never to run scared. And once things are in some semblance of order, you just have to kind of like go with this belief that things are going to work out and all of that. And sometimes you have to have faith. And I know sometimes there are some folks on here that are definitely believers in faith and all in that kind of space. So that's just kind of my attitude toward that. Not everybody has to have that. Not everybody has to believe like I do or anything in that space. But the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program just got more flexible. That's right. Two groups of student loan borrowers should take action for expanded relief. So that's another story that I was seeing out there. And also, Justice Kagan has temporarily blocked the January 6th committee subpoena seeking phone records of Arizona GOP chair Kelly Ward. So that's one of the other things that's going out there. Of course, there's violence all over the place and things in that space. As a matter of fact, I think here in Durham, we just had a woman that was found dead in one of the parks and all in that kind of way, even though there have been reports that gun violence has been down here in the Bull City. That is the nickname that a lot of folks give for the Durham area and all in that kind of way. But definitely, they're saying that the big guns are coming out in the whole races in the midterm. Apparently, they are sending out Obama, and who knows who else they might send out as well, that being the Democrats and all in that kind of way. And definitely, that is another story that is out there that we might get into some conversation with. And some people are still talking about that Fetterman debate. And apparently, he did very poorly. And I'm going to have to go back there and watch that debate because apparently it was an embarrassment to see and all in that kind of way. But as I did not watch it, I can't make a full judgment. But there were others that did watch it, and I know that that was part of the discussion on yesterday. And last but not least, there was a death threat aimed at OSF artistic director Nataki Garrett, and that has prompted a lot of outpouring as well. So that was actually reported in NPR, and I'm gonna get to some of those details as well. But that's just some of the news that I was seeing and all along those lines. So I guess the first person I'm going to bring in, if he's available, is Nick Palveda, but it looks like he's doing some other things. So I guess I'll bring in Lee. And oh no, there's Nick. So I'll bring in Nick, and we've got the other folks as well. So Nick, I guess my first question for you is, what is your take on these folks that are all excited and they're going into um, they're staying in isolation. We've been in this pandemic now for almost 3 years, and that was one of the news stories that I immediately saw. And I know that we had all kinds of conversations, including some conversations that have gotten us in trouble. But I'm not one that will resist trouble and all in those lines. So there was an article that was in the Washington Post that said people are still isolating and masking. And I guess that there's just a group of folks that are like, we're going to just kind of like have this attitude of we're not going to take any chances. But there are other folks like myself, and I guess you, that are like, you can't stay in hiding forever, even in the middle of a pandemic and all along those lines. But I just wanted to know, and then we'll bring in some of the other guests, your take on that, and I might bring up some of the article points as well. But that was one of the stories that caught my eye as I was looking over some of the news items. Oh, you're on mute, Nick. It helps if you get off of mute.
Oh, on mute. Okay. All right. Here's the reality, Mark. Okay. 1,125 people died yesterday of COVID-19. Is that acceptable? Apparently, the answer is yes. Apparently, we don't have any problem with it. How many people were killed in the gun shootings yesterday that made the news? A couple of them? Okay. Well, this is how many people died of COVID. So I'd like to hear from the rest of the panel whether they believe 1,000 people a day dying of COVID is acceptable number. So let's bring in the panel. Dr. Dan Worthington, Lee Rhodes, Sasha Starr, and Shaquille O'Neal. What do you think about that number? That's how many people died yesterday of COVID-19 in the United States of America, and we just don't give a rat's rear.
Before we, Nick, is that died with COVID or from COVID, first of all?
From COVID.
Okay, let's put that in perspective. Can you break it down, the ages and whether they had comorbidities?
No. Okay,
that's very important.
That died. Okay, I mean the thing is they died of COVID. They don't break it down ages. And why would that?
Why not? Material? Why do you think they don't?
Counselor, why would that be material if you died of?
Because COVID, if they're all 95 years old, it's very relevant. If they're all in nursing homes where they cannot be
older people like me, it's acceptable if I die. But younger people, it's not acceptable. I don't think that's correct.
We all die of something eventually.
That's true.
It's kind of a given and everything. But, yeah, just really quickly to add some more substance to the article and everything. This is a quote that one of the people said that was in that article about folks that are kind of staying away from going out and everything in that space, because they definitely interviewed some folks that were in that area. And definitely one of the folks, Jeremy Pawlowski, they had a quote that they said about what was going on in their world and all along that way. They said, we've turned down various parties and events that are indoors because we just don't feel comfortable doing that yet. And this is from a 47-year-old. We are a bit cut off from certain friends, unfortunately. And although none of their guests have balked at their request, the couple knows it will all get harder in the winter when it's less comfortable to socialize outdoors. So some of the people are good with socializing outdoors, but it's when it's going inside that they're like, wait a minute, there's still some risk out there, and I'm going to take that chance. And
Mark, there's a risk indoors also. You can drown in your bathtub. There's a risk whatever we do. But is it a risk rational not to go outside and be part of society?
That's what I said. I don't do.
Well, I actually think it probably is, Lee. I mean, if you're a Democrat, I think the best thing for you to do is to take yourself out of society and stay indoors. I don't see a problem with that. Dan, would you agree that's a good plan?
Yeah,
permanently.
Don't go vote. I mean, it's fine. Stay there. Isolate yourself. Talk yourself into this hysteria. It's fine.
Well,
it's a serious problem that there are that many dying. But it's interesting. I read an article the other day. It had to do with a mortician, and he says 95% of the people he's getting in
are dead.
Are people who died from COVID.
Who said that?
I did.
Died from COVID within 2 weeks after getting the vaccine.
And I've heard that. I've heard some people that are concerned about the nature of the vaccine. I've actually got a couple of friends that have refused to take the vaccine because of some of those concerns. I'm not saying that they are right.
The nature of the vaccine, I've had the vaccine over and over again. There's nothing wrong with me. Nothing wrong with me. Nothing wrong. Come on, Mark.
Dan, did the mortician speak anything about blood clots in the
vaxxers? Are hilariously ludicrous.
Within 2 weeks of getting the vaccine, 95% of the dead folks that are coming in for services have had the vaccine within the last two weeks, and they're categorized as COVID deaths.
Got to raise flags among people who are interested in the truth.
Well, and that's one of the things that people are asking about because one of the polls that I was reading, and it's actually from Monmouth University, said that, and it was back in September, 22% of people are very concerned about a family member becoming seriously ill with COVID. Now that's compared with 45% the previous September, but that's still a sizable portion. And a quarter of Americans are supporting mask mandates and social distancing guidelines, down from 63% last September. And people are taking precautions, even though, coming
Yeah,
back
but
to the whole
I'm not,
political
I'm not
thing, hold on a
sure.
second,
I'm
come back
not
to the
sure
whole
what
political
relevance.
thing. President Biden said the pandemic is over during an interview
I'm not.
last
I'm not
month.
sure what relevance there is that 25% of Americans, want there to be mask mandates. When according to the polls, there is 4 out of every 10 Americans think that Biden's doing a good job. According to the polls in Pennsylvania, 4 out of 10 Pennsylvanians think that Fetterman's debate was brave. He was so brave to come out.
Now, wait, now I want to get back to that because, like I said, I did not watch the
I mean,
debate.
the
I did
balance
watch
of the
the other
Senate,
debate,
the
but I've
balance
heard
of
some
the
people,
Senate
including
could well be
Democrats, that have
hanging
said
on
that this was not
Pennsylvania.
a good debate from Fetterman. So, would somebody that watched the debate tell me what Fetterman did in this debate and why it was so horrible? Because I've even heard some of my Democratic friends say that was an horrible debate from Mr. Fetterman and everything. So, what exactly took place?
He stayed awake.
The man is struggling. He's recovering from a stroke. It's very, very sad to see. And, I think that he may well be able to run in the future, maybe not. But I don't think it's the right time right now. He's clearly struggling. And the debate was it was a really, really poor performance. And really the sad thing is for people who are Democrats in Pennsylvania, is that a lot of them don't like, the very slick Dr. Oz, who, has lived in New Jersey, that's just come into Philadelphia, into Pennsylvania. There are a lot of people that feel like he isn't really a very good representative for Pennsylvania. But what choice do they have when the Democrats put up a man who's clearly struggling? And I can't see how anybody in their right mind would vote for him and say, yeah, that's going to be the best representative I can have. But what's really, really noteworthy is this apparently unbiased media. I just want you to just for a laugh, go onto YouTube and type in Fetterman Oz debate and see how long it takes you to find it. Every other debate, you'll be able to find it like that. You can find debates from the 60s and the 50s, no problems. But you try and find this debate, you won't be able to find it. Why? Because almost every major media outlet pulled it down like within minutes of the debate finishing, so that people couldn't see it. Now, I've got the link if anyone wants it. I think WITV, I'll bring it up in a moment. They've left it up, but that's how bad it is that people don't even get the opportunity to actually go back and watch it if you live in Pennsylvania. That's just such a disgrace.
Well, speaking of disgraces and everything, there is a party, definitely into that whole monetary kind of group of folks that have got more money than they know what's good for them and everything. Yes, I'm talking about Elon Musk, but apparently, with that whole Twitter thing, there is a group out of Twitter. Hold on a second, because there's a group out of Twitter that apparently has been going on for a while. I guess they even did it last election, but I'm going like, I didn't know that they were involved in politics. But with less than 2 weeks until the midterm election, there are about 20 employees from across Twitter that have volunteered to help the social network's internal election squad. That's right. They've got an internal election squad that is enforcing its rules at a crucial moment for U.S. politics. So I'm guessing they're going there and they have to learn to the basics of how to spot election misinformation, detect bots pushing propaganda, and flag potential violations of Twitter's rules to the company's policy staff. So since 2018, the Call for Volunteers has been a part of an all hands on deck approach to major elections. So I guess that they're going to love this conversation. Who knows what they might do with us and everything. But what is your thoughts about Twitter going around and having these employees that are going around making sure that whatever is being said, whether it's by us, whether it's by Clubhouse, whether it's by whoever else, is going in there and they're basically like saying, wait a minute, that's a lie. We got to get rid of them, and all in that space. But Nick, you've talked about media and the power of social media. What's your thoughts?
I'm not really interested in Twitter. I very rarely use it, Mark. So I don't have much thoughts about Twitter. I think Elon Musk bought a dying dog, and sooner or later the dog's going to die. I just don't get Twitter. But The people in the panel may be using Twitter. I just don't even use it. It's kind of a waste. I know we broadcast through it, but other than that, I don't see Twitter being relevant. The only person who made it relevant was Donald Trump. If Donald Trump didn't tweet all the time, I think Twitter would die. The bird's dead.
You say it's not relevant, but Shaquille will love this one. But the article also says, and like I said, it was in the post, that from the Arab Spring to the Trump presidency to Me Too and Black Lives Matter, Twitter has played a pivotal role, that's their words, not mine, in global politics that belies the company's relatively small size compared with rivals such as Meta and Alphabet. So it began investing heavily in content moderation following revelations in 2017 of Russia's influence on the campaign and all in that space. But what is your thoughts? If they really
sorry, can I just clarify? Content moderation. That sounds reasonable. What does content moderation mean? Does that mean censoring only right-wing voices? Is that what we mean by content moderation?
Yeah, we could start with there. That would be a good start. Where else do you want to go with it?
I just gave you some things across the board.
Start.
I just said right wing and left wing. Did you just give the example?
I heard you.
To the
just get rid of the right wing.
Me Too and Black Lives Matter. There was definitely some things in there that we consider left.
Calling centre-right people left-wing isn't really a thing. You want to tell me which left-wing groups have been censored?
Well, I'm saying according to this, they said that they censored things from the Arab Spring. That's left wing. They said they censored things from Me Too and Black Lives Matter.
Source. What are you talking about?
Why be apologetic for it, Mark? You don't want right wing stuff on left wing stuff.
Mark, how is that censoring right wing or left wing from the Arab Spring?
Well, according to them, I guess the comments that were said against the Arab Spring, they were saying that that's got to go and everything. And I'm imagining that they probably were saying things that could have even been pro Arab Spring or pro Black Lives Matter. They were the ones that used the examples and everything. So that's where I was going. I was like, wait a minute, it sounds like they're trying to censor both parties, but y'all are disagreeing.
Elon's got to clean house because it's stupid. What's happening?
He is. He's going to fire a lot of his employees when he gets in there.
The same as
only for business purposes.
Send him back.
Nick, can I explain to you why Twitter is relevant?
It's very
important to know where the eyeballs are, where the attention is for the people. Whether you agree with the information or not, whether it's true or not, I think it's very important what people are talking about.
No, I got that. Hey, I just had a wonderful idea. I wish Steve was here because apparently,
if everyone was asked, was wondering, I was going to correct what I said because I wasn't sure. It's WHTM that have actually left theirs up. So, we try to correct it when those things happen. I've done it as well and everything. But apparently, hey, maybe that's why Steve went up to DC, because apparently there was a free trip to DC, a private chat with Obama, and a bunch of other things that were out there that they sent out as an invitation to social media influencers. So apparently TikTok is trying to get social media influencers. That's another social media outlet. And this is a democratic effort to woo social media influencers. Is this going to help the election at all? Is this going to turn the election? I think that those moderate people and the people that are undecided are going to be so blown away with Dylan Mulvaney going there. It is whatever it is, his 227th day of girlhood. Yeah, they're totally going to be like, oh my God, well, he's there. I better vote for Democrats. I mean, how ridiculous. Truly, how absolutely ridiculous.
Well, you said it's ridiculous, and I definitely agree with you that is ridiculous. That sounds like I don't even know how that's going to influence, but apparently that's what the Democrats are trying to do. And I know that it's going to influence people away from them. That's what's going to happen. It's going to take the people in the center, and they're going to look at the world. They're going to go, I don't believe it, but I'm going to have to go and join the Christian conservatives because that's the only place I get any freedom. That's what you're going to end up. You know what's going to happen? There's going to be more people who are exposed to Christian conservatives who become Christian. There's not going to be more people in the middle that go, you know what, that sounds really good. I should start taking, hormones to be the other gender. I should start telling my children that gender doesn't exist, right? The people aren't going there. It's not working. Stop it. But speaking of things that are working or maybe not working, I know we talked about it, me and you, Shaquille, off camera, but I'd love to hear from the panel on this one and everything. Is this attempt, because like I said, I went to an event this past weekend and I heard at least 2 candidates mentioned, is this attempt to try to get the cannabis supporters in to vote as well going to sway anybody, and is it going to work? So what is folks' thoughts? Because there's a lot of people that are trying to push for this national cannabis laws and all of this that will hopefully try to influence, or at least that's what the Democrats are saying. But is this strategy going to work? Is a bunch of potheads going to go out and start voting?
That's if they can find the voting booth.
I did answer this the other day, and I said to you on air, I said, look, I happen to believe that drugs within reason, drugs should be legalized. But it is the Democrats that are pushing for this, and it's interesting timing. Obviously, they believe the only people that would vote for them are potheads.
Yeah, probably.
You'd have to be high to think that he's doing a good job.
There you go. That'll bring the Democratic vote there. But also, we do have a real prisoner problem here in the United States, where we have more prisoners than any other country, and a lot of them are nonviolent criminals that quote smoked weed or some other strange.
Is that all they are?
Behavior.
Is that all they are? Like let's say you let out all of the non-violent offenders. Let's say that you do that. So
well, you can't, because some of them are white-collar criminals. In other words, you can't get rid of all of them because they're white-collar criminals. Remember, we have Republicans running around stealing money out of public coffers. We got to incarcerate them.
So people like Bernie Madoff, you would agree.
Same thing, right?
Democrats never steal.
So Nick, you would agree that people like Bernie Madoff should stay in jail until he dies, and he's
matter of fact, he's dead and he died in jail.
He should. Yep. Okay. But the 25-year-old who thinks it's okay to hang around at middle schools and give the year 7 and 8 kids drugs, it's not violent as such. That's okay. We should just no penalty, cashless bail, give you a $50 fine, off you go. That's all right.
Well, there's things called rehabilitation as opposed to taking the 25-year-old and sticking him in jail, Shaquille.
Okay,
jail doesn't do anything for the 25.
And a repeat offender, a person that keeps doing it, right? Because in your fantasy world, the 25-year-olds selling drugs to 11 and 12-year-old kids, they didn't really know what they were doing there. It just kind of happened, and they need to have some
Shaquille, the Brits have a great solution for people like that. You ship them off to Australia, your country, and let them live there, and that's what they did. When you get somebody who's like a repeat offender, can't do anything with them, Australia's a great country. Give them a one-way ticket. Do like DeSantis did, except give him a ticket to Australia. You guys handle him. He's not our.
The difference is that our borders are closed.
That's how your country was founded. Was a bunch of people like that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, but our borders are closed.
Right. Wait a minute. When did the borders close, and how long have they been closed for? You mean I can't come visit you in Australia? This is highly upsetting.
If you have incorrigible people that go to Australia and they'll fit right in, Mark.
I got an idea.
They'll be normal. So if you get somebody stealing drugs, send them to Australia. They'll be normal.
Well, speaking of things that are strange, and hold on a second. Speaking of things that are strange, I definitely want to hear from you, Dan. But the U.S. Department of Education is, I mentioned earlier, planning to make several key changes to a long-troubled student loan forgiveness program, apparently for public servants, as if they need the help. So the department announced this on Tuesday. The program, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, was mismanaged for over a decade, resulting in forgiveness for only a small portion of qualifying borrowers. It says the idea was simple. Qualifying forgiveness was not. That was according to the Education Secretary, Miguel Cardona, and he said that in a call with reporters. As one teacher told me, the system was full of trapdoors. If you walk through the wrong one, you're out of luck. So now the department is removing some of these trap doors. So they've implemented this program, including expanding the type of payments that qualify for forgiveness in a limited waiver that expires on Halloween. That's right, it expires on October 31st and all of that. Since the waiver debuted, more than 200,000 borrowers have been approved for over $14 billion in forgiveness. So what is our thoughts about this and the fact that it's going toward public servants, folks, and all in that space? Is this a good idea of what's going on here? I'd love to hear from the panel.
I'm ready to go first. I'll go first. If you're waiting for me to say something, no problems. Look, if an employer wants to give their employees an incentive to either join that company or to stay with that company, fair enough. But you're talking about tax dollars here. And the government in every country government should not be there to pick winners and losers like this. You know, just like the $10,000, $20,000 loan forgiveness that Biden has tried to put through that's been challenged in the courts. You know, you are favoriting one small segment of society, and everybody else misses out. That's not how it should be. If there are benefits available, then they should be available to everybody. If there are incentives available, they should be available to everybody. They should not be just, you know, we're going to just pick and choose. And how we're going to pick and choose isn't going to make logical sense based on, you know, economic metrics. We're going to pick and choose because we think that we will enhance the voters in that particular group for our political party. That is,
isn't the purpose of this?
Of course
Shaquille?
it is. Lee, you don't think that the strategist sat down and did a calculation and worked out, if we do this policy, will this policy be better
Nice
for us or
job.
worse for us?
The president of the United States, Steve Rouse.
Did you get an autograph?
What a
Yeah,
brown
Did you
nose.
get autographs?
he's running for president of the United States. I'm glad Steve's back here and he can take over the plane and all of that. But just one other quick question before Steve gets into some of the thoughts that he may have and some of the news stories that he's got going on. But apparently there's two things around cancellation, and you're going to love this, Shaquille. But Penn State has canceled a campus event featuring Proud Boys founder Garvin McInnes. They did that on Monday night, citing the threat of escalating violence. So they're afraid that there might be violence based on what he's going to say because he's
Mark?
a member of the Proud Boys. Hold on a second. I was actually going to mention that on the online dinner party, I had the pleasure yesterday of having Maestro Curry on, who is actually doing a concert of nothing
Yeah, I
but
love
canceled music. Hold on, let me finish because this actually comes to Sasha. So some of this music is going to
Hang
feature
on,
music
you're going
from
to start with Proud
Ukraine.
Boys and you're not going to let us respond. You're just going to keep going until you change the topic to something
We
else.
all need a chance to respond to that, Mark.
We're still dealing with cancellation. So I was just going to mention this event that was on.
You're canceling Shaquille and me.
music from the Ukraine, Russia, and it also features. It's going to close with music from Dixie and the national anthem, and he did that intentionally because he was talking about how apparently Abraham Lincoln, which I did not know this, but Maestro Curry is a student of history. Abraham Lincoln, who at the end of the Civil War, requested that Dixie be played at the end of the Civil War because he was like, I like the song and we won and it's a good song and all along those lines. But that was just something that Maestro Curry brought up.
Can we play it now?
Yes.
Can I just say something to you, Mark? I see how this is why I always pay some attention to the language that gets used. So what you said was Penn State has cancelled the event because of the violence that will be caused by the speakers, by what the speaker's going to say. No. It's not about what he's going to say that causes the violence. Left-wing activists are going to go out there and in the name of free speech, they're going to say, how could this person possibly speak? And what we're going to do is we're going to use violence to intimidate the people that want to go and see this speaker. This has not just happened to this particular speaker. This has happened to other right-wing or conservative speakers. Like
Very common.
Vance.
There's a word for it, too. There's a called heckler's veto. And it's disgusting. Arrest the people who break the law.
You know, the guy from Canada, what's his name? I've got one of his books here.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, you know, and many other. I can name a whole heap of others.
Ben Shapiro, lots of people.
Michael Knowles, you know, all these sorts of guys. They come out that they want to talk, and the activists decide to be violent, threaten the crowd, threaten them, etc. So their events get cancelled. But please don't say it's getting cancelled because of what's said on the stage. That's not the cause.
They said that because of the threat of escalating violence, and they didn't say where the violence
Mark,
came from.
To arrest the people who do the violence.
Because of what the speakers
I agree with you. I told y'all before.
Don't shut down events.
I told you before. I've been at protest events, and that's part of our job is to keep an eye on those that might be doing the violence, whether they are members of Antifa. And I think that the right-wing organizations should do the same thing. So I've said before that that is something that responsible organizers should do. And I have some friends of mine.
Because the Great Summer of Love was so you guys kept such a good eye on the people that were rioting. You know, people came onto international TV and justified the looting of Gucci stores, saying that was somehow reparations. Come on, don't pee my leg and tell me it's raining. Come on.
So let's get away from this issue, and I'm going to take control. I must say I'm feeling very presidential in my presidential sweatshirt with the seal of the president on my thing. It feels great.
Where's your podium, Steve?
Such a brown noser. Such a brown noser.
What? No, what brown noser? Maybe I want to be president. maybe I'll be the 78th or 79th
Never.
president. I don't know.
Never.
Get to Congress first. But anyway,
Hang
I
on,
will.
sorry, Steve. The 78th president. You're at 40. You're at 46.
Oh,
How long
that's
do you
what
think
I meant.
you'll live?
Do the math. Do the math.
That was
You've only
government.
got to wait another 30 years, according to what you're saying, and everything in.
And stay in your basement.
No, I will work for the White House. Real quickly, a couple of things we're going to go through today. We're going to continue our analysis of the elections that are coming up and looking at some of these key states and what we put our crystal ball together. And we are planning an election show. We are expecting some announcements very soon on the U.S. economy, quarterly report of the nation's GDP.
I can tell you. I can announce it for you. It's in the toilet. Yeah, economy's terrible. GDP is
The
slightly
experts
up.
are predicting
Probably
growth
spotted next
between July and September. But we still, even
Yeah,
though you
that's
have
what I
growth,
just said. There will be a very, very slight uptick, I think, in GDP for this quarter. The GDP results coming out next year are going to be terrible. And what you've got to really do is you have to look at the recent company reports that have come out. So when you have a look at the company reports of companies like Pepsi, who's released theirs at the moment, yes, they have made more profit. They've made more profit by selling less goods. That doesn't last very long. It means that they're selling less goods for a higher price. That's because of inflation. That's not good. That is not a good sign. That is not growth in the economy. And that's going to be very, very dangerous moving forward, I think.
well, yeah. And so we're seeing that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, will be testifying for a Georgia grand jury that he played a key role in those elections. So that's going to be interesting. And the Supreme Court put an order that Senator Lindsey Graham must be before the grand jury as well. The other thing that's interesting is turkey prices will be skyrocketing. There will be a shortage of turkeys this year. So folks, get your turkey early because you like it on Thanksgiving. You may have to go for something substitute for turkey.
You mean we have to get rid of? You mean we have to grab those 4 turkeys that are sitting in Mom's backyard? I can't just go to the store because she's got a family of turkeys that are back there. So you mean I've actually got to get rid of those lovely turkeys, and I can't just go to the grocery store and get the ones that we usually get?
No, I don't know. That's what
Are you sure? Are you sure there's not going to be like a 10-cent saving? Because wasn't before there was a 10-cent saving for your hot dogs or something, or your bread rolls or something that the Democrats were trying to sell as something to celebrate? Did that happen?
For $1 markup, Shaquille.
You can do
Yeah.
turkey.
And before we get to Shasta Star and the war in Ukraine, also the anti-government uprising continues in Iran. It's in its 6th week, and it looks like Iranians are just fed up with repression and economic neglect, and they're all mobilizing against this 22-year-old Masha Amini who died in custody with the police, and thousands are gathering in her hometown. So we'll continue to monitor that situation.
Wait
But
a
Dan,
minute, hold on a second. So the Iranians are having the same kind of issues in terms of being upset with their government, and yes, Shaquille's gonna love me going this direction, everything, as the Los Angeles folks are, because apparently they voted yesterday to censure 3 of their current and former council members for their part in an incendiary conversation that contained racist remarks. And I think that those actually were Democrats that were censured in that case, because I think the Los Angeles City Council is probably predominantly Democratic. So it sounds like that's going on the same way as Republicans.
Mark, I don't know. I really don't know how you formulate your thoughts here. So you've just said the Iranians are doing it for the same reason as the people in LA. So you think the Iranians are like, look, there was Iranians being racist to other Iranians. Is that what you think?
I did not say it was the same.
No,
I just said it was a parallel.
Attempt to change the topic into something to do with racism in America. That's what it was.
Did I say anything about? Like I said, I just said that they were frustrated. Yeah. What I said was they were frustrated, just like the Iranians were. They're both frustrated with their existing people that are in control, whether it's in Iran or whether it's in Los Angeles. Now they're frustrated for different reasons, but they're frustrated. And we talked about the frustration of the
other than the
public.
fact that there are people frustrated with government, what other commonality do you think there is between
that? Was the commonality with the frustration with government. That was the whole point I was making with the frustration with government.
Come on, Mark.
That was the point I was making, was that they were frustrated with government. But speaking of Los Angeles, apparently mortgage rates have topped 7% for the first time since 2002, and they are saying that is chilling the housing market there in Los Angeles. I told you that I just found out over this.
You don't think? Yeah.
That in downtown, hold on a second. I just found out that in downtown Durham, we have $1 million condos, and people are shaking their heads about that. They're going like, why do we have $1 million condos that are being thrown up and all of that? And that's their starting prices. I hate to think what the prices are above the $1 million, but the starting prices are $1 million, and they're in the heart of downtown and all in that space. So that's here and Los Angeles. Apparently, there's all kinds of things.
That's going to be a serious issue that the United States is going to face next year. You've got the CEOs of the big banks saying, look, it's going to be a bad recession. People are criticizing what the Fed is doing. And even I have said I would much prefer to see them flood the market with supply instead of trying to dampen demand. But that's not really in the Fed's playbook. So what are we likely to see? We're likely to see the Fed come in and just try to crush consumer spending in order to try to bring inflation down to more normal levels. And that's going to mean that you're going to see those asset prices, or I won't say it's going to, I'm not going to predict anything. I'm just saying what's likely to occur based on historical norms is that you are going to see the prices of assets that went up dramatically with the big influx of money in the last couple of years be under a lot of pressure and start to fall. You're also going to see that people may have actually listened to government and went on spending sprees and started to try to invest in investment properties and things like that they simply can't afford to when the economy starts to slow down, interest rates go up. So you can expect, I would think, that property prices in New York are going to fall or at least stagnate, not keep up with the rates of inflation. You're going to see that in LA as well. And I think in those areas that have benefited from the people that have moved out of those big cities, you're also going to see the same thing. You're going to start to see a lot more pressure on those areas. It's not sustainable. Now, I said this last year. I've said this for a while now. One of the biggest concerns that I have is a lack of investment in productive assets. This is something the Bank of International Settlements has talked about. It's not something that I've heard any central banks talk about. I haven't heard this in the Bank of England. I haven't heard it from the Reserve Bank of Australia. I certainly haven't heard it from the Fed in the United States. So we're not seeing any of the big sort of quasi-government organizations talk about this as being a real issue. And that's going to cause problems. You know, what are you going to do when the market turns down? People say, well, we want to try
Shaquille, along those same lines,
I want the right types of investments in productive assets. Where are those jobs going to come from? And that
Shaquille, along those same lines, and I definitely want to hear from Steve about this and everything, because the local folks here in Wake County have announced a multi-million-dollar fund to keep affordable housing in the area that you and Nick live in, because I'm actually in Durham County, but that's in Wake County and Raleigh. And they said that they're going to pump a lot of programs in order to keep people that are considered the missing middle in order to help them with their funding and all along those
Yeah,
lines.
and affordable housing is something that we are going to talk about. I'm working on some actually issues in the town of Mooresville to have affordable housing, but they are making a lot of investment.
How does that solve the problem that I've just talked about? You know, government coming in and saying, look, we have this issue with the exact things that I've identified, that other economists have identified, the Bank of International Settlements has said. Lack of investment in productive assets means less jobs, less production, right? That's what's going to happen. Government jumps up and says, well, we'll solve the problem. We won't incentivize businesses to come back, deregulate, and encourage investment into those productive assets. No. What we'll do is we'll subsidize housing for the people that can't afford it, whilst the Fed crushes them with high interest rates in order to try to solve some of the inflationary pressures that's being caused by government spending. That's just not a solution. It's not just government. And if it was a solution, then affordable housing programs from the 60s would have actually solved the problem by now, wouldn't it?
Well,
I hear what you're saying, but and this is an issue that involves both government money and self-help ventures.
Well, let me get to Sasha Starr, and we'll come back because I want to give him a chance to chime in on any updates on Ukraine. Sasha, yesterday we talked about the back and forth that's going on and attacks on the Crimea, but where are we with Ukraine right now?
Well, the most interesting thing is how change West and USA rhetorics in relationship with Moscow from the beginning of the war and 8 months later, which is now. So at the beginning, there was talk about what United States and NATO will not do. They will never step their boots on Ukrainian soil to fight Russians. They will never supply heavy weapons. They will never supply flights. They will never close the skies. They will never do this and this and that. So in a way, it encouraged Russia to start attack against Ukraine and doing it viciously for the last 8 months. However, now, 8 months later, telephone call from Russian army minister Shoigu to his American counterpart, General Austin. So Austin tells him this: in cases that you're going to use tactical nuclear weapons or something like this, here's what's going to happen. And it's not a threat. I'm just trying to be nice to you and explain to you what we are going to do. Number one, in 40 minutes, your Black Sea Fleet will be gone. There will be no more Black Sea Fleet. Number two, in next 48 hours, all your troops on Ukrainian territory will be gone. They will be all killed. There will be no more Russian troops on Ukrainian territory. But that's not enough. Number three, you leave and just confirm that your house is number 24 on Rublovsky Chaussee in Moscow. That's a place where all Russian oligarchs and many prominent people live, beautiful, fantastic houses, very expensive and so on. So on the day 3, there will be no more number 24 on Rublovsky Chaussee. That house will be gone. History. It will no longer exist. Understood, colleague? Oh, you know what Shoigu said? He said, sorry, but we never intended to use any nuclear tactical weapons. No, we don't need that. We're doing wonderfully well with the conventional weapons, and that's why if we would destroy Ukraine, we'll do it with conventional weapons. We don't need tactical weapons at all. And several months prior to that, everyone, Putin, all these talking heads on the Russian television, they were all talking about imminent nuclear, at least tactical warheads will be used, and so on and on and on. Okay, so I think U.S. and NATO commanders learned a great deal how to talk to thugs. And this is a prime example.
Sasha, quick question for you. I'm hearing some talk in the news, and I'd love to hear Shaquille's thoughts on this as well, because I know one of the shows we do is entitled Ukraine, Russia, and China. And I'm hearing a lot of people that are saying that while we are seeing a very weakened Russia, that what China may be doing and thinking about is not going toward Taiwan, but actually going to the side of Russia that has a large amount of Chinese Russian citizens, and that's where their expansion may actually want to go, and all along those lines. So as Xi is now the new forever emperor apparently over there and everything, what is your thoughts around that? Is it possible that Russia may actually be facing a threat to the east, because there are a lot of Chinese Russian citizens on that side of Russia?
You see, China is very pragmatic in its international relationships. The last thing what China will do is to fight a war, whether it's US or Russia or anybody else. No, they don't need that. They will just, I'll tell you, it's not, it didn't start this year. It started probably 20 years, if not more so, ago. A lot of, that Siberia region of Russia, it's not even underpopulated. It's, frankly, it's not populated at all. There is very, very little populace. So, and especially the tragic situation is with the men. Half of them are impotent, half of them are drinking, half of them are unprotected, completely waste. So the Russian women, in order to prosper in life, they are willingly marry Chinese men who are productive, who are supposedly potent, and with whom it's very prosperous marriages. They have kids, they have their own small business, most likely they're having a farm and maybe more than one farm, and so on. So in this respect, the kids, they are learning Chinese. If there will be at any time, anywhere in Siberia referendum to vote to leave Russia and join China, that referendum will go just close to 100%. So there is no need for war. So there will be referendums. A certain region will ask China if they can join in. China will say, well, look, if that's your will, okay, let's talk to Russia if Russia doesn't mind. So what is Russia going to say? That no, you must stay being Russian when kids looking Chinese, they speak Chinese,
Well,
they have nothing to do with
But
Russia.
let's keep in mind though. I heard Fareed Zakaria talk about this last weekend that China's economy's growth has really slowed, and so even though Premier Xi is focusing on more government control of industries, is that going to really work? And will the China, they'll continue to be a major threat economically and obviously militarily, but is he taking China in the wrong direction? And so anyway, that's something for us to consider. And I do like
No,
Shaquille
what I'm
Latimer's
going to
point.
add to that is Shaquille, you're in the world culture and everything. What is your thoughts about this? Because that's what I was hearing with that part of Russia is going to ask to join the Chinese government, which makes China an even larger landmass. It's already a large landmass, but it'll become even larger. But you are more into the world scene and know more about world economy and politics. But I was wondering your take on that.
Well, look, I'm not an expert in Russian affairs. I can't claim to be, and I would find that somewhat difficult to believe that would be likely to happen. Look, I actually would have thought that, looking at the size of Russia, that there's many parts of Russia that are so far away and dramatically far away in distance from Moscow and St. Petersburg that, you would sort of wonder whether it's sustainable for a country like that to stay together in the first place. But, I'm only judging that based on looking at the map. I've never been to Russia. I don't know that region well. I don't know the politics. And most of the stuff that I learned from Sasha, who's so generous to tell us so much more about that region. So I couldn't even weigh in on it. But I just want to say something about China very quickly. Mm-hmm. Look, militarily, are they a threat? And economically, are they a threat? I just want to address both things. Militarily, what exactly is the West expecting China to do? Is China supposed to just sit there and say, well, you know what? We're not going to have a military. We're just going to kind of, plod along. I mean, they didn't have a great time in World War II. They were attacked by a country that was significantly smaller than them. They haven't had a great time throughout history where their people have been, mistreated when they've moved to other countries. I've said this before. I'm not a great fan of socialism and government control over the economy the way that they have over there. But if that's the way the Chinese people feel that it is the best system of government for them and that they feel that's the best way to achieve common prosperity, that's up to the Chinese people. So coming back to the economy.
Shaquille, do you think the Chinese people feel free to express their opinions?
I think it's a lot more difficult there. Lee, but you have to.
How do you gauge what they really want then?
Hang on. Well, you can come to some conclusions, right? Millions of people, I forget the number, but I think it's something around the 10 to 15 million mark, leave China every month for holidays and different things. They all go back. They don't leave and start asking for asylum in neighboring countries. They all go back. Students that come
and therefore,
well, if it's so bad, you wouldn't think that they'd want to go back. Students that come and study at Western universities go back. What I'm trying to get at, Lee, is that I don't think it's reasonable for us to sit here. I have been to China, but are people that haven't, to sit there and say, well, they're doing all these terrible things and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, maybe that's the case. But I don't think that there's less government control over things in Western countries a lot of the time. A lot of the time, we have a facade of democracy, and we don't get what we're getting. Now, as I said, I'm not defending the Chinese system. No, I'm absolutely not. If enough people were upset enough in China, I think that you would see something change. That's something that you're not seeing at the moment. But let me just
like a Tiananmen Square.
Well, I'm talking about today. I'm not talking about 30 years ago.
Let's understand. Just move on. Hong Kong.
Let me talk about the economy for a moment. So, on economic things, when people say China is a threat, now again, what is China doing that's so threatening that we think is bad? Let's take the Belt and Road Initiative. That is going to be a very, very big part of the Chinese expansion of influence around the globe. But that is happening at a time when we can't be bothered. why exactly hasn't the United States and the United Kingdom and allied countries said, you know what? Why don't we expand our interests? Why don't we expand trade with all these countries? So we're not interested in doing it, but we'll criticize them. They work for significantly lower wages. And I'm not just talking about this, if you're going to go down the sort of, slave labor type route, Lee. I'm not talking about that. Even people who live in Beijing and all that.
There's good people on both sides, right?
But they work for lower wages than what we are used to over here. They produce goods. They do things that we're not prepared to do. And then we criticize them. So my question is, if you're Chinese, what would you do in their position? And look, I don't want to be a defender of China. I'm not here to say China is fantastic. I want to go live in China. I don't. I've got my own countries that I'm a fan of. I just don't hold this grudge against China that I think is getting a little bit unfair actually on them, right? If we're not producing the goods ourselves, why do we want to criticize a country that does produce those goods and then say, well, look at how much they're a threat to our economy? Well, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want them to do?
No, I hear what you're saying, Shaquille. I did want to get, and I know Steve is going to do close out in a few minutes, but there was another international story that I mentioned earlier, and I was just going to see folks' thoughts about that because definitely Israel is in the news, and part of the reason they're in the news is because of two things. And one, I know Shaquille's going to love this one, but they're in the news because of the Israel-Lebanon deal and the fact that a enemy state has apparently recognized Israel, and they're saying that this could set a stage for a stable and prosperous region there in the Middle East. So a lot of folks, including France and I believe the United States, have been behind this deal, and that could be a wonderful thing. The thing that I can't wait to hear what Shaquille, hold on a second. The thing I can't wait to hear what Shaquille.
Chris, we should be upset with France.
No, yeah. I heard that, and Chris was going to be upset with France and all that. But the thing that I'm really curious to hear what Shaquille has got to say about this one is the other thing that when I was looking at that story, I found this thing called the Times of Israel, and they were channeling a story about that whole woke culture that I know Shaquille's a big fan of. Because apparently the Israel Defense Force on Thursday declared the success of a 2-year pilot program for a company of all-women tank operators and said the role would become permanent in the military. The company in the Caracal Mixed Gender Light Infantry Battalion operates along the Egyptian border, not in wars or in fighting deep behind enemy lines, and the pilot was apparently launched in 2020 after an initial trial that saw women serving in tank units from 2017 to 2018 was deemed inconclusive. So the IDF said Chief of Staff Aveth Kohath accepted recommendations made by Tamar Yadi, the head of the ground forces, who termed the trial a success. And from now on, they will be permanently assigned to the position. So apparently we're going to have more women fighting there in Israel and all along those lines. So what's your take on that? Is it good that we're going to have women in this apparently all women unit there in Israel?
I hope it excludes pregnant women, or how does it work?
Well, why would it do that, Sasha? They've just, in the United States, they've now got what do you call them, like overall things that have, a bigger stomach specifically for pregnant women who are going to be fighter jet pilots and jump out of aircrafts and that sort of stuff. Because, when you're pregnant, that's the sort of thing that you want to be doing, right?
That's true. Sometimes some women are pregnant and they even don't know that they're pregnant. So they're in a tank, and then all of a sudden they realize that they're pregnant, so they need to deal with that.
No, what they've got in the US, they've got these new army uniforms for high-risk jobs like being an airline pilot, but being a fighter jet pilot, for people who are so pregnant. I won't say women that are pregnant, because we know that it's not just women that get pregnant. For people that are pregnant, like Lee and I may one day be pregnant.
Maybe one day, maybe. How do you know about yesterday? The guy just came to the hospital delivering.
Exactly.
You don't know. You didn't ask me.
I don't know why this is relevant to Steve being elected to president of the United States and the 1,125 people who died of COVID.
I don't want to be president. I just want to be like Secretary of State.
Hey, no, you can't be. That's my job. That's the only thing I'm allowed to have as a non-citizen.
I want to be like Mr.
Wow.
President.
No, I've already got a deal.
I really fell in love with the
I've already got a deal with Dave.
Yeah, you totally fell in love with Double Johnson. But we get
Actually, I would like to contribute to the COVID story, how it's played in Canada. I'll tell you what happened last weekend. We were invited on a big social gathering, and one woman, she had a COVID about a week or 2 weeks ago or so, and so she was already negative, and but she was sitting at our table, and some people, including my wife, they were a little bit concerned that although she is negative, but maybe her husband is not negative, and maybe even she is negative, she is a carrier. So why to take such a chance? So my wife phoned to a person who invited all of us, and she said, "You're right." So she phoned that woman and said, "You are no longer welcome to attend the party. Please stay home. Bye-bye." So that was a furious response from this woman. She called my wife, and she was screaming, "You're not a doctor. How do you know?" I spoke to 2 doctors, and they said that yes, you can attend the party. So yes, she can attend the party. There's no danger to her, but there might be a danger to other people at the table. So she didn't show up. She didn't attend the party. The second case is involving my daughter. She's going pretty soon on, actually tomorrow, yeah. She's going on overseas trip for 3 weeks. And she has a girlfriend who is a medical doctor. And when she told her about her trip, she says, "You're crazy. There is a COVID. How dare you're going there? Please cancel it. Get away with your tickets, give them back, and stay here. You don't go anywhere." She said, "Well, if the COVID is there to stay forever, or even 10 years or so, does it mean that you cannot travel anymore, that you have to stay home, you have to not going anywhere, and just what is your life about to be?" And I'm still a young woman, and I would like to enjoy myself. After sending her kids to universities, now she has time to travel. So that her girlfriend stopped calling. She's no longer in contact with her and so on. That's how she's upset. And my daughter said that, well, it's her business. If that's how she
Folks,
wants.
I'm going to go ahead and hit the wrap up. I'll be back.
You will
Tomorrow.
be back on tomorrow. Definitely hoping to see you
Hopefully.
back tomorrow. And hopefully you'll be here. By the way, your Prime Minister, not yours personally, but the British Prime Minister has, speaking of the Israeli folks, has said that he is a friend of Israel and that he's definitely supporting them. So as I toss it to you, the new British Prime Minister has called Jerusalem, Israel's historical capital, and he's vowed to fight anti-Semitism and things along those lines. So I guess that's his way of having a major ally in that space and everything. I think he's been an ally of them for a number of years. But I'm tossing it to you.
Wait, hang on. Sorry, what do you mean he's been an ally of them for a number of years? The United Kingdom is a Five Eyes country, one of America's closest allies. And the United Kingdom, as well as Australia and the other Five Eyes countries, have been an ally of Israel since it came into its modern form. I don't really mean a number of years. It's just this Prime Minister. I mean, our countries support Israel. There's no debate about that.
Well, they just said that he was a strong supporter of Israel and a friend of the UK's Jewish community. So that's all I was bringing up, and everything along those lines. And maybe it was the semantics of the way I phrased it.
Is there anybody in politics who's not? What's
The squad.
Who?
We have politicians here. Of course there are, Shaquille.
Oh, I'm talking about in the UK.
Okay.
I'm sure
fair.
there's some in the UK too. But on that
I'm
note,
going to
we're
go ahead
going
and
to toss it
close
over
out.
to Steve.
You guys can continue. I have to leave, but
No, we're going to toss it for you for the closeout. It's closeout time.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for being on the show. Tomorrow we'll be talking a little bit about a wrap up of the elections. As we're winding down to the final wire here, looking at the swing states in the Senate, the governorships we're looking at, the legislative seats we're looking at. Will this be a Republican sweep, which many political analysts are now saying because of the economy, or will Joe Biden and the Democratic Party be able to make a comeback that we just don't see? Are the polls off? Are they accurate? How much will the Supreme Court decisions affect turnout, or will it just be about the economy? Sometimes these things are dictated by the head of the ballot, what's at the top of the ballot, and what's at the top of the people's minds. With that being said, I am excited to be wearing the presidential sweatshirt I got at a White House souvenir store. And as I said, it was one of the great events of my life to be in the White House for a Diwali reception. And but we'll be talking about the White House in general, maybe a history of the White House as we get to President's Day, about the different presidents and the different challenges that American presidents faced. I must say, I was inspired as I took a run to the Lincoln Memorial and was able to recite the Gettysburg Address by heart with my phone and a video that I took in front of my appointment with the President Lincoln, which was an amazing appointment because I spoke to him and it was just wonderful speaking to someone that I think hopefully is listening to us and watching over us in heaven, a president that actually saved the Union and brought us together. God knows we need some of that in the United States today. Let's have a wonderful day wherever you are. God bless each of you, and may the light and love of our hearts always lift us out of the darkness, from our family to yours at Pod and Roku TV. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day or evening.